Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clemson. We are located on the land of the Eastern Cherokee and Southern Iroquois. Good morning. It's good to be here and to be with you. I'm Kari Moss, and my pronouns are she and her, and I'm a member of the UU Fellowship of Clemson Worship Associate Team. Whoever you are, wherever you are in your life journey, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, wherever you were born, whatever language you speak, you are welcome here. Whatever your skin color, whatever your class background, whatever your range of abilities, you are welcome here. We are so glad that you chose our fellowship as your place of worship this morning. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, welcome. If you are a visitor and would like to stand and tell us who you are, you're welcome to do so. Okay.
My name is Vernon Brown, and my wife, Mary Ann Brown, and we just happen to be of Holly. And it's glad to be here amongst you today.
Vernon and Mary, welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome. Anybody else? Okay. If you are interested in getting our weekly newsletter so you can get connected to our community, our weekly sharing of joys and concerns, and our collective efforts to support local social justice work, please reach out to the office by email or our website. I have a couple announcements today. You'll also find them on the back of your order of service. Today, after the service, we have a webinar. It's SC, Legislative Advocacy Techniques. It's been moved from the sanctuary to the social hall, and it will be a little afternoon today. Learn how to stay informed and contact your legislators, presented by Social Action Committee. On March 1st, Saturday, from 9:30 to 4:30, we have the Women's Retreat, Finding Strength and Wisdom Within. Registration info in the Weekly Connect, or you may contact Rose Ellen Alaguar if you have questions. On March 2nd, Sunday, UU, noon to 2:30, if you're curious about what membership means at UUFC, this is the place to start. Come and learn about our faith and our congregation over a casual lunch in the Founders House. RSVP to admin@uufc.org. Contact Karen York or Nancy Johnson. Thank you, Nancy. March 8th, Saturday, Spring Workday and Pizza Lunch. Outdoor cleanup, bring clippers and tools. Contact Meg Williamson and let her know you are coming. Thank you.
Good morning. I am the Reverend Holly Brown. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm the settled minister here at UUFC. And I offer these words of worship, call to worship, and also welcome. Welcome all to this place of love and justice. This place where we attempt to live up to humanity's highest ideals, highest hopes. Do we fail? Yes, we do. Often. Do we try again? Yes, we do. Always. Because we are people looking out for each other. All others, and our planet. Welcome all to this place of love and justice, to this gathering where the sacred and the holy are being together. And in the spirit of worshiping together, you are invited to rise in body, mind, or spirit, wherever you are, to join in singing number 1053 How could anyone? And you'll see on the slide that it repeats once, and we're going to go from there.
I would now like to invite Cody Moss to light the chalice for us. Come on up. Now let us share in the reading of this fellowship's affirmation that is shared in the order of service. We gather together in a spirit of love with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another.
This morning's story is a fun one. Lulu, the One and Only, by Lynette Mawhinney, illustrated by Jenny Poe. My name is Lulua Lovington, but everyone calls me Lulu. It means pearl in Arabic. Mama tells me you are unique and gorgeous, just like a black pearl. She wears these beautiful earrings all the time. They are from her mother in Kenya. My big brother's name is Zane, and it means gift. He is silly and makes me laugh a lot. Being in a part black and part white family seems to confuse people around us. They say a lot of mean things to us because they think we don't fit in. Kids tease Zane, "You're the blackest guy on the team. The coach is really your dad?" When I play in the park, the other moms always think Mama is my sitter. "What do you charge? We're looking for one." When I go out with Daddy, some people think I'm adopted. "That's so nice that you gave her a good home. Where did she come from?" Everyone else might be confused, but I'm not. I love our family. But being a mix of Mama and Daddy always brings around that question. I hate that question. What are you? What are you? So, what are you? What are you? What are you? Zane, do people ever ask you what you are? Yeah, it's annoying. But that's when I use my power phrase. Your power phrase? It helps people understand who you are, not what you are. I'm proud of our family and that I'm brown, but I am more than my skin. I want people to know what's inside me, too. When I get that question, I tell people, I'm magic made from my parents. Dad taught me how to play hockey, and I love to study space because of Mom. You know how good I am at so many things. Mom and Dad have a ton to do with that. Wow, Zane is really smart. Now I need a power phrase too, and I need it fast. How do I find my power phrase? The question is not what I am, but who I am. I'm a good singer. I'm fast and strong. I am loving and kind. I am a black pearl, unique and gorgeous. I've got to get this right. The next day, Billy asks, "Hey, Lulu, what are you?" It was time. "I'm Lulu Lovington, the one and only." "Cool," said Billy. "Do you like to sing?" We sat together at lunch and sang our favorite songs. The real treasure is inside, just like an oyster holds a pearl, and just like me. Lulu Lovington, the one and only.
This is the time we set aside for the offering in order to give toward the financial vitality of this community. Also, 25% of the undesignated collection each week goes to an organization in the local community that we partner with. For the month of February, we are partnering with the Ripple of One. Each week, we also collect non-perishable food for the Clemson Community Cares Food Bank. You may also give by going to the UUFC website and using the donate button. There you will see options for paying your pledge and donating towards the organizations we partner with. Thank you for your generosity.
Okay. So this is a time during our service that we share joys and concerns, a sacred sharing of connection, reminding us that we are part of this community. And we have a bowl here, and Kari is going to place some of these stones in them for each of our joys and concerns, representing the shared community. So last week, I didn't have any of these, so y'all made sure I had plenty of them today. I think I have 14. So, but here we go. So I have a joy and a concern from Modi Wetzler, fondly remembering my dad who passed away exactly 10 years ago today. Have a joy from Cody. that she has Girl Scout cookies that you ordered, so meet her in the social hall to pick them up after service. Have a concern shared by Sarah McNeil on behalf of Elaine Faithful, that Elaine has tested positive for a cancer biopsy this past week. Please send her healing thoughts. Also from Sarah McNeil, to share that Marguerite Kirsch is recovering from a stroke in the hospital in Greenville. Have a concern from Sarah Summers Hoskin, encourage everyone to focus on what they can do. Let's choose hope, courage, and compassion. Holly Ulbrich shares a concern is that the battle with developers of the hub are an uphill struggle. Have a concern from Joe Galliard that her girlfriend's car has been totaled and she's in the process of finding a new job. We have a lot going on right now. Concern from Michael Cole that Pope Francis is gravely ill. He represents the better movements in the Catholic Church. Have a joy and concern that was shared last week in the order of service and handed to me by David Shaley, who's been a recent visitor here among us, but that he's not here today because his first child was due to be born on 2/20, so hoping for his and Ashley's health and well-being. And have a joy from Tom Hiebel that his daughter, Catherine, attended her first hurling match in Ireland yesterday. Yes. I have a joy to share that y'all heard my parents introduce themselves earlier, and I am grateful for having them here to see my new house and to attend service. Have a joy from Paula that Reverend Christina Branham Martin will be installed as the settled minister at the Emerson UU congregation in Marietta, Georgia on Saturday, March 1st. And she was the interim minister here before me. And Cody has a joy that her mom is worship associate, and she's so proud of her. Yes. 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 And Kathy Crane isn't here in person, but is attending online and sent me a request to share a joy that Cory, our pianist, was featured as champion of nature in blog this week, and you can find a link to that in our weekly Connection newsletter. Yes. Steve Afrigola lift up concern that he's been moved to, is in a skilled nursing or rehab facility this week and continues recovering after a car accident. So sending prayers of healing for him. And finally, we place a stone in this vessel for all of the joys and concerns, the sorrows that we hold a little more close and tender to our heart. Thank you. And now you're invited to sing the children to their religious education classes with Karen and Meg with the song Go Now in Peace. I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation, settling into your seat as you hear these words. Some days feel like it's just too much. Some days I want to hide and shut it all out. Some days I want to channel the ancestors who fought for liberation and for the right to exist. Every day, I want to know when to speak up and disrupt injustice, even in seemingly insignificant moments. Each moment is significant. Each day, an opportunity rises when we can bear witness and choose to disrupt injustice. Disruptors and truth tellers when called upon. Grant us the humility to know that this is a practice, and when we make mistakes, we will try again with love and patience. We are called to the caring and growing of souls. We are all in this together. As people of faith who affirm the interdependent web of which we are all a part, we are called to become holy disruptors because we are all in this together.
I now have the pleasure of reading an excerpt from A Circle of All by Reverend Manish Mishra Marzetti. Where are you from? This was the ubiquitous question I was greeted with throughout my childhood and adolescence in the 1970s and 80s. Though I was born and raised in the United States, being a descendant of a relatively recent immigrant group meant that this question was at times a stand-in for, what's your ethnic background? Or, what is the country or nation of your cultural and racial heritage? But the question was rarely, if ever, asked with such nuance and sophistication. It was more simply and linguistically presented as an othering. You don't look like the major racial and ethnic groups that I, the questioner, am familiar with. Therefore, you are not from here. So where are you from? It was also invariably a demand. As a child, not yet understanding all the layered nuances of the United States history with race and ethnicity, I would answer, Pittsburgh, my hometown, or Squirrel Hill, my neighborhood within it. And the next, almost inevitable question would be, no, where are you really from? What country are you from? The insistence and pervasiveness of this question throughout my youth convinced me that I am not a child of the United States and that I didn't really belong in the U.S. The only answer that satisfied and stopped the insistent questioning was India. And so, although I held a U.S. passport and had never lived in any country other than the U.S., the ethnic and cultural questioning directed at me convinced me implicitly that I was really a child of India, just somehow lost or displaced. I came to believe that I was a foreigner in my own nation of birth. This lack of belonging, this being held at arm's length as other, was my constant, unambiguous companion.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time.
So I'm going to try using this mic this morning, but I noticed it cutting out earlier, so I might have to resort to going back to the pulpit. So the service that I had planned today was going to focus much more on, did that just happen? A book that I read a number of years ago, and that has a lot of really good questions and anecdotes in it, and I'm still going to lift some of that up. But there have been some things that have happened in the world, as you might guess. How many things are continuing to happen in the world around us? And this past Monday was no exception. Across the country, there were protests that were being held, and in Seneca, South Carolina, a number of you if my count is right, about 20 UUFC folks showed up, which out of 150, that's a pretty good showing from one congregation. And so because of what happened during that protest, I want to lift up and circle back to what I talked about last week, about loving the stranger, about loving your neighbor as yourself, because that is challenging in these times. In the face of hatred and vitriol that is directed at us, I had someone ask me after service last week, do you really mean that I have to love, and named some people that are making decisions that are hurtful to many of us? And I realized something after that question. It didn't come to me immediately, but yes, it is hard to love people that don't want to love us back. But in the midst of this protest on Sunday, there were a couple of counter-protesters. One that was holding a sign that said idiots, pointing at us from across the road and kind of shouting at us. People making gestures as they drove by. But there was a guy that got out of his car. He stopped his car in the middle of the road and got out and started making lewd gestures and shouting, and walked over and shouting in someone's face. Someone tried to disrupt him. He ended up getting back in his car and pulled into City Hall's parking lot and got out with his pregnant wife, although to name that's an assumption on my part. Not that she was pregnant, that was pretty obvious, but that she was his wife. And he was yelling and screaming at people. And instead of raising, or rather lowering to his level, people started chanting, "Love, not hate. Love, not hate." And then it transitioned to love your neighbor. To love your neighbor. In the midst of someone yelling at us, he was drowned out by the sound of love. He was drowned out by people saying that love in that moment is what we were going to hold on to, that hope. How many of you remember a quote from Michelle Obama a few years ago that said, "When they go low, we go high"? And for us to continue to love our neighbor, to love the stranger as ourselves, it isn't about just recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of someone else, but it's also holding on to our inherent worth and dignity, our humanity, our willingness to not stoop to someone else's level. And boy, is that hard sometimes when it is directed at one of your identities. When you feel like you are in danger, whether physical, emotional, or otherwise. And so this brings back to the idea of, did that just happen? That I said was a book that I read a couple of years ago. And it has a lot of anecdotes in it that call it identity-related aggressions rather than microaggressions. Because the reality is that even if it's unintended, even if it seems small from an outsider's perspective, if it is about your identity, it can be really hard to recognize that as anything micro. And there are a lot of examples given in the book. One such example that I've experienced is in a conversation with someone one day. I was talking about having dyslexia. And he called me a liar to my face. He said that I must be lying because I'd gone to college. And he understood dyslexia as meaning that I couldn't read, like at all. And I corrected him, but he didn't see how I could be telling the truth about both things. And that one was one that I was like, no, this is just so ridiculous. It's easy for me to say something back in the moment. But have you ever had something that someone said to you that you are just kind of in shock? To ask yourself, did somebody really just say or do that thing to me? Now, if that has happened to you or someone that you've been with, when you think, did that just happen? Did you have the wherewithal to say something in that moment? There have been times when things are said that you might need a few minutes, maybe even a few hours or days, because sometimes that first draft thought, that immediate gut reaction, isn't necessarily the kindest, compassionate, loving thing to say. And so, in those moments, sometimes if we've felt threatened or attacked, that kind of reptilian brain kicks in, and that gut reaction, which is often known as flight or fight, freeze or fawn. And we might not be able to react in that moment. But this is when having allies and accomplices around us in our communities can really come in handy. Because if you see something, it doesn't impact you as directly, and you can say, hey, that kind of felt hurtful, harmful. Why did you feel the need to say that? And sometimes it's just something that you kind of let go of in the moment because you don't want to take over somebody else's response, or that you want to move that person out of that situation so that that doesn't continue to happen. There's a few examples in this book that I'd like to share with you. One is two women getting on an airplane, one black and one white. Both of them stopped to put their carry-on luggage in the overhead bins in first class. The flight attendant stopped the black woman and said, "Your luggage doesn't go there. You have to put it." And the white woman, however, put her luggage in first class and continued to her seat in coach. The black woman had a first class ticket that she had to show to prove that that's where she belonged. That moment of, did that just really happen? Maybe the flight attendant wanted to say something to both of them, but could only stop the one closest to her. Maybe she made an assumption of who she thought a first-class passenger looked like. Sometimes we make snap decisions. We make choices in the moment based on our frame of reference, where we come from, what we know, what our expectations of the world are around us. But if you can imagine, those identity-related aggressions can add up over time. Have any of you ever gotten a mosquito bite? Pretty sure all of you have, at least at some point. Now, have you gotten a lot of mosquito bites, like in the same area, on the same arm, the same leg? Some of you? Now, the one mosquito bite, annoying, right? But if you had 5, 10, 20, you might be annoyed. But as you get more and more, you might get more flustered, and more colorful language might escape. But if you can think about this in the way that it impacts someone with what the authors call a rising identity rather than a marginalized identity, the repeated over and over throughout the day, that finally, that one thing that doesn't seem that significant to others causes an outburst of anger or rage, and it may seem disproportionate. But it's built up over time. Another one was about pronunciation of names. Have any of you ever had pronunciation issues with your name? Yeah, I especially see some nods from Holly Ulbrich and Paula Husenfeld and Bing and John Hoskin. And I had to make sure I didn't put an S on John Hoskin in addition to putting, because when I put Sarah Summers Hoskin, there's an S in there. There's a couple of S's in there. So, but, you know, sometimes it adds up. And Audrey, not Aubrey, yes. So last names and names in general can be tricky depending on where we're from, what our culture is. Some of you may have had the experience of me mishearing you. I've got a hearing aid, so that happens less now, but I have some creative hearing still, nonetheless. And aforementioned dyslexia, sometimes reading things doesn't go as planned. So I feel the other side of this issue. In the book, there was a woman that let people call her Dr. Daisy instead of her more complicated last name. And it felt easier to just settle into that. I had someone tell me once, don't look at my name when you try to say it. It was some like Polish name that had lots of extra letters, and she said it was simply Chomsky. And I was like, okay, yes, that's good advice for me to not look at that name. Sometimes we can have things that are moments of silliness and fun, but for someone that hears repeated over and over the questions of where are you from, or how do you say your name, or can I just call you? I had a professor in seminary who just let us call her by her title of doctor and E as her first initial. Her name was Elaine. It was a very long, a lot of phonetic sounds in it because she was from Brazil and had married somebody, and her last name was hyphenated from sounds that were not from Brazil that were merged together in this name. And it was easier for her than having to explain over and over and over again how to pronounce her name. And on the other side of that, really the only time that I've had my name mispronounced was really interesting from her as a seminary professor. She called me holy. Which, being in seminary, I don't know that I would go that far. But, difference in the ways that we speak and the pronunciations that we have can really have an impact, especially over time. And so I bring all of these things up because sometimes loving your neighbor as yourself, loving the stranger as yourself, means being intentional, to recognizing when things happen that don't feel okay, that you can say something about, or that you can work at to make sure you at least are someone that is getting it right. Loving your neighbor as yourself also has the complication of you need to be able to love yourself. Anybody ever had any trouble with feeling that for yourself? Got some head shakes, yes, no. Loving ourself is where we have to start. And the idea of love at the center of our values is essential, but it's not just some frivolous love. It is compassion. It is caring for others. It is caring for ourselves. It is showing our understanding and respect for the inherent worth and dignity of people, even when their actions are heinous and we cannot agree with them, when we cannot abide the harm that is happening in the world around us, and that we show up and we speak out, or we make phone calls, or we send letters to say that this is not what we signed up for, that this isn't okay. But we have to do that from a place of love, of seeking justice, of caring for one another, of creating communities, because in these times, community is what is going to give us hope. It is what is going to keep us going. It is what is going to allow us the time and the space to rest when we need to celebrate both our joys and our sorrows, to hold one another is essential, carrying that love forth. Now, have y'all ever flipped through the hymnals and see how often the word love is present? Seen stuff like stoles like this, or the yellow shirts that have the same logo on them. Our closing hymn that we'll come to in just a few minutes is called "Love Will Guide Us." It doesn't say that love will guide us as an easy thing. It says peace has tried us. We have been tried, but love will still guide us. Peace is inside of us. It will guide us through the hard night. And we can change the world with our love. Love, and a liberating love, is at the center of our faith, whether explicitly stated or not. That love doesn't mean just the word love. It means compassion and care. It means loving your neighbor as yourself. It means loving the stranger as yourself. And that is hard work. It is aspirational. We don't always get it right. Sometimes our initial gut reaction of that fight or flight is the fight. And when you have that moment, that energy that comes raging out of you, that you want to say something that isn't necessarily the kindest thing, my gut reaction when I saw that couple get out of their car yelling and screaming at us was not kind. It was making assumptions about their socioeconomic status, from the way they were dressed, the way they moved, assumptions about their education level because of how they were engaging with us. And I think thinking that they are ignorant of issues was probably, I felt like, one of the kinder things I could think. An assumption that it must be ignorance, but the reality that willful ignorance is a little bit different. Being hateful for the purpose of being hateful is how they showed up. But the crowd of folks there responded, even in the face of that hate, with love. And that reminded me of the words that you may have heard often from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Those aren't exact words, but the gist is there. That hate cannot drive out hate. Meeting someone else's hate with our hate back at them does not serve us. It does not hold our inherent worth and dignity in meaningful ways. I have some words that I wanted to say at the end that I have to look at. In the song that you heard in the video, we shall be known. We shall be known by the company that we keep. May we recognize that the company we keep calls upon us to recognize when harm happens, to do what we can to make amends. If we see something that makes us go, did that really just happen? That we check in on somebody, whether we interrupt in the situation itself, but that we recognize that it happened and that we can check in with someone that we care about, making sure they are okay. My prayer, my hope, is that we recognize these things when they happen, that we work to honor our covenants with one another, that we work to continue to learn and grow together, that we encourage each other to live into our aspirations, to help one another recognize how love can and will guide us, how compassion can guide our actions in the world. May it be so. May we make it so. And blessed be. And as I alluded to, our closing hymn is number 131, Love Will Guide Us. You're invited to rise in body, mind, or spirit wherever you are in singing. Love guide us. May it continue to give us hope and recognize the care and compassion of our communities. As you go in peace, return in love.